Hey y'all, Iric Sky here. Welcome to another Timepieces for Tomorrow episode. Now I created Timepieces for Tomorrow because I felt that it would be a good fit, not just a good fit, but a great fit for Iric Sky's Adventure Channel. Just like adventure travel throughout the world, collecting timepieces, wristwatches, can be a very rewarding and entertaining hobby. So within this video, and again, I want to give you a quick background. I'm over 40 years old, man. I'm getting old. I got that gray fur up there, man. I mean, I'm getting old, but I've been seriously collecting wristwatches for over 30 years. And before that, I was involved with you'd go down to the store. I don't know if you remember Timex watches, but when they came out with the Indiglo, that was one of the coolest things I got. And then I started getting into Swiss watches. I got the Victorinox, the Wingers, and then I got into Seiko. Then I got into Omega. Then I got into Rolex. And I got into Panerai. Got into JJ LeCoultre. Got into a bunch of cool things. And the thing is, a lot of lessons have been learned throughout the journey. And one of the biggest things, and something I always applaud, and I'm going to give a shout out to him, Archie Luxury, Archibald Chesterfield III. Now, this guy is a Bible of wristwatch knowledge. This man can recite most any wristwatch reference. He's incredible. I mean, just the amount of knowledge that he has. And he taught me a lot. The first proper timepiece that I had was the Omega Seamaster 300M, and this is pre-coaxial. So this is the Omega Seamaster 300M with the blue wave dial. A lot of y'all may refer to this as the James Bond watch, one of the James Bond watches. And actually that was the appeal, because when I got my first proper Swiss automatic watch, I couldn't afford, anything better, and this was more than awesome. I mean, this took a lot of hustling. This took a lot of eating on the cheap. This took a lot of planning to get, but I was happy as soon as I got it. I've worn this timepiece in oceans, hot tubs, showers, swimming pools, saunas throughout the world. And I mean, it is exceptional. So the Omega Seamaster 300M, obviously this being an older reference, the more current references, they have ceramic bezels. This reference developed a very nice patina because of the aluminum bezel. And that's a desirable trait, among collectors. So let's go ahead and hop in here, and I'm going to provide you my unfiltered and hopefully valuable first-time luxury timepiece buyer's advice. What should you buy? You want to get, maybe you've hit a career milestone. Maybe you've hit a milestone with one of your businesses. Maybe it's been very successful, and you want to treat yourself to a proper timepiece. What should you get? So, this video is geared towards the person that's just starting their collection. Subscribe to my channel, ring that bell icon when you do, and I've got a lot of other videos. I'm going to continue to post the videos. And by the way, ask any questions that you may have, and I'll try to answer those questions within future videos here on Timepieces for Tomorrow. That's timepiecesfortomorrow.com. You can find all my episodes there. And yeah, there's a few things that one should consider, and it's easy to, number one, the first thing I discourage, don't do it. Discourage everyone from doing is walking into an authorized dealer, walking into a wristwatch retail storefront and asking them what you should get. Do not do that. You need to be a well-educated buyer, because you need to know, what type of discount you should expect. You also need to know what is the timepiece that you're looking for. Your first timepiece. What do you want to get? What is that first watch? What is that first wristwatch? You need to have in your head what you want, what your goals are, and you may not even know. And that's what I'm going to help to explain within this video. You may not even know. Being a first-time luxury wristwatch buyer, you may not know what you want. And I'm hoping this video may be able to steer you in the correct direction. So, don't go into an authorized dealer not knowing what you want, because you will get sold. And they will probably sell you something that they've been trying to sell because more savvy watch collectors didn't want to buy. Not saying it's going to be a bad piece, but you're probably going to pay more than you should, and you're probably going to walk out of there with something less than desirable. And, the reality is, the sad reality is that you know, that's what I've seen happen to a lot of first-time wristwatch collectors. You know, they become sold on a piece, they wear it and they feel proud, and they're like, man, this is awesome, you know, check this out. But then they realize, oh man, I made a mistake. And I've made mistakes. And we'll talk about that within this video and future videos as well. But for the first wristwatch, what I would recommend is asking yourself, is this something you want to wear every day? If so, you're going to want a screw down crown. You're going to want to watch with proper water resistance, you know, 100 meters or more, you know, preferably a 300 meter wristwatch like the, like the Omega Seamaster 300M that I showed earlier, or the Rolex Submariner, in my case, the Rolex Submariner No Date. You know, those are both excellent examples of wear anywhere wristwatches that are timeless, meaning they're probably never going to go out of style. You know, James Bond, the fictitious character, was very well known for his Omega Seamaster, and he was very well known also for his Rolex Submariner. The reality is, both the Seamaster and Submariner are exceptional pieces. Now we're going to go into this in a little bit more depth here because, you know, as a first-time wristwatch buyer, if you bought an Omega Seamaster or if you bought a Rolex Submariner, you would be doing well. You know, there's nothing wrong with either of those. The only cautionary words that I would give you about limiting your first wristwatch purchase to a Rolex Submariner or an Omega Seamaster is that it's kind of, you know, by some people it's going to be perceived as, you know, you really didn't have your own opinion. You know, you just kind of, you went out there and you saw, okay, James Bond had a Rolex Submariner, James Bond had an Omega Seamaster, those must be good. And actually that is, you know, it's funny because when I bought my Omega Seamaster 300M, number one, I got it because it was a James Bond watch, and number two, at that time, I couldn't afford the Rolex Submariner. So it's a great watch. It is not a watch that's inferior to the Rolex Submariner. Just two different brands, two different things. Now, the Omega Seamaster, because of the design, it does have a helium release valve at the, at least this reference does, at the 10 o'clock position, which a lot of people find to be less than desirable. You know, the Rolex Submariner, especially the No Date, or just call it the Submariner, because the Submariner date has the date. The Submariner is just a no-date timepiece. I would say whether you go with the Rolex Submariner No Date or the Rolex Submariner date, either one's fine. The thing is, I went with the No Date because the No Date has better symmetry on the dial. So, you know, that's an experienced collector speaking. It's not because, ooh, dude, I didn't get the Submariner date because I couldn't afford the date. You know, I went cheap and got the No Date version, the non-date Submariner. And that's what a lot of non-watch collectors would think. It's like, well, you know, I got to get the date because I don't want to be perceived as cheap. The reality is that in the eyes of collectors, the Rolex Submariner, the Submariner without a date, is a more desirable piece than the Rolex Submariner with a date, the Rolex Submariner date. And nothing wrong with the Rolex Submariner date. It's a phenomenal piece, but the symmetry is not as good, and it does have what's called the date cyclops. It's that piece that sticks up on top of the sapphire crystal. So you get the symmetry distorted because it has a date, and you also get that cyclops on the top of the sapphire crystal, which gives it a less than pleasant look, according to the opinions of many watch collectors. So, you know, if your first watch, if you've got the budget to get an Omega Seamaster or a Rolex Submariner, you'll be fine. But if you're not going to limit your search to either of those, here's some things I want to share with you. So first of all, if you want to wear anywhere, wear everyday watch, you want to make sure that it has a screw down crown. You know, there's some brands out there, you know, some that come to mind, like your Cartiers and Cartier, well, Cartier is kind of the big one that comes to mind. Some of them have water resistance stated on it. That doesn't mean they're waterproof. You know, if you want a very highly water resistant piece, and again, I've been swimming with my Omega Seamaster 300M, I've been swimming with my Rolex Submariner, oceans, hot tubs, pools, saunas throughout the world. I've never had a problem, but I always make sure my crown is properly screwed down. And that's because I have a screw down crown. Screw down crown just means you screw it and it screws down. Some of these wristwatches that have water resistance, they have a push down crown, which may be somewhat water resistant, but it's never going to be as water resistant as a screw down crown. Some less expensive options, if you're getting your first wristwatch and you don't want to, maybe you don't want it to be your one and done watch. That one watch you get and it's like, oh, that's all I need. If you want a one and done, you get an Omega Seamaster or you get a Rolex Submariner, you're going to be set. You're not going to have any complaints. But if you just kind of want to get into it, it's like, yeah, I want something I can wear every day, but I'm really more into dress watches, so, maybe I'll spend a little bit less on my first watch, but I want it to be a wear anywhere. There's some really good pieces that are put out by a brand called, hold on one second. Sorry, I got poison ivy on my leg. There's several brands. There are several brands that you can find. Tag Heuer, I would probably stay away from. In the past, Tag Heuer was very well regarded. In the present, they're not too great. The same goes for Longines. A lot of people mispronounce it Longines, Longines. They make some good pieces, but again, their reputation is not, what it was in the past. And it's one of those things where you should really, do your due diligence and see what's out there. And I would strongly encourage you, just eat on the cheap. Imagine that you're spending X amount per day for food, X amount per weekend for entertainment, and have some weekends where you don't partake in whatever entertainment, or some weekends or some weekdays where you don't eat as much food, but still set aside the excess. So in your mind, imagine that you spent as much as you normally would, but actually you didn't. So the surplus, put it into a safe place and use that to start fueling your, the purchase of your first proper luxury wristwatch. This is really stupid. This is going to sound really stupid, but there's a brand, and it's I want to say another brand. It's not that brand. Oris. I was wanting to add another letter to it. Oris, O-R-I-S. Oris is an exceptional watchmaker. If you're wanting to get in on a high quality automatic timepiece, but you don't want to get into the territory of Omega, you don't want to get into the territory of Rolex, you don't want to, you don't want to kind of hunker down and get the Longines or the what was the other one I just said? Longines or Tag Heuer. You don't want to kind of hunker down and get those. Oris is a great option. They make a bunch of die pieces. I would, with any of these timepieces, I would encourage you to go to an authorized dealer, try them on, and see what fits your wrist the best. Now, for most people, including myself, I've got a 7.5-inch wrist. Right now, I'm wearing the Tudor Black Bay 58. This is a 39 millimeter timepiece, which, a lot of people are like, man, 39 millimeters small. Keep in mind, in the past, for a man's watch, especially dress watches, they would go down to like 34 millimeters. Typically, it was 36. You got your Rolex Datejust. You've got a lot of watches that come in at 36 millimeters. According to the time of posting this video, 36 millimeters is deemed small for a man's watch. But a lot of people may like that. It's not as much substance on your wrist. I've grown to appreciate the 39 millimeter Tudor Black Bay 58 that I have on my wrist more than I did, and this was not a mistake, but it was at the time, it was kind of cool. This is a Breitling Super Avenger, and I think this is 47 millimeters. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a beast. It's a certified chronometer and a certified chronograph. So basically, chronograph means stopwatch. That's a simple way to think of that. So This is an example of a timepiece that, although it has a stated water resistance of, let's see, what does it say here? It had the water, oh, 300 meters, yeah, right. This thing, although a great piece, and it is kind of big, this thing has leaked on me twice. But because I bought it from the authorized dealer, when it did leak, I sent it back to Breitling and got the warranty service. But just a word of caution, just because a piece may say that it's water resistant to whatever, if it does not have a screw down crown, especially something with a chronograph, a stopwatch complication, you probably don't want to swim with it. You probably don't want to wear it in the shower because this thing did leak. It's an exceptional piece otherwise. Again, in my opinion, with today's standards, 47 millimeters is too large. A lot of people like a larger watch. This is still desirable. But, you know, as a first-time collector, especially if you're a man, I would stay, unless you got really small wrists. If you've got really small wrists, you may want to look at 36 millimeter pieces. But for most people around 7 to 7.5 inch wrist, you're probably going to find the sweet spot on the lower end of the scale, 39 millimeters. On the higher end, I would say 42. You know, once you go above 42, you start to get in that territory. It's a little bit large. Now, you know, an excellent example of a 42 millimeter that I really enjoy wearing is, and I think this is a 42.7. This is the Elise Nardin Maxi Marine Diver. So this is a rock solid timepiece. Highly water resistant, awesome finishings, awesome lume. It's not a Rolex, it's not an Omega, but it is a very outstanding, exceptionally well engineered piece. This at 42.7 millimeters looks great. I feel it looks great on my wrist. Comfortably, 42.7 is about as large as I go. The exception is Panerai Luminor. I like to wear a Luminor that looks large. You know, there's something about a Luminor that's small. It's like, dude, is he wearing a girl's watch? You know, with Panerai, you need to go big or you need to go home. You don't need to get into Panerai if you don't want to wear a larger timepiece. Now, with that being said, I don't care for the Panerais that are larger than 44 millimeters. This Panerai 112, PAM 112, in my opinion, is a great example of a classic and collectible and just very comfortable timepiece from Panerai. Panerai, I do one and done. I don't have any desire to add any more Panerai. Now, if you're looking for something that's not a Rolex, it's not an Omega, but you're going to get similar quality, you may want to look at Breitling. Now, in this case, this is the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2. Now, this particular piece, it comes in a variety of different sizes. This is the 42 millimeter, but I've got a 44, and I think they've got, was it a 46, larger one. For my 7.5 inch wrist, at the authorized dealer, I tried on the 42 millimeter, which felt great. I tried on the 44, which felt great. But from a collector's perspective, I had to go with 42 because 42 is a more desirable size. Should I decide to trade, should I decide to sell in the future, that more desirable size will probably make it easier to sell or trade. Not that I plan to sell or trade, but just something to always have in the back of your mind. You know, don't get sold. You know, the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2 that I just talked about, that's a prime example. I tried on the 44. It looked great. It felt great. My wife said it looked great. But I knew that the 42 was the one I needed. And it looked great, felt great, and everybody liked it too. But, you know, don't get sold. You know, don't walk into an authorized dealer and be steered in the opposite direction. You know, always know in your gut what you want. And it's always okay to walk away and come back. You know, make sure you get what you want. Now, there's some other types of pieces if you wanted, and again, just to recap, Rolex Submariner, the Omega Seamaster 300M, the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2, all of those excellent water resistance, screw down crowns, timeless pieces. You probably can't go wrong with that. Another cautionary word is that, or cautionary words rather, is that just because a brand is Rolex, Omega, Breitling, you know, insert brand here, doesn't mean that it's desirable. Rolex, for the most part, most everything they release is highly desirable. Now, there's some questions surrounding their Cellini line, which is to be expected, but that's the only reference. And reference, by the way, means model. When you're talking about timepieces, when you hear people say reference, that's just a way of people saying the model. So the reference, the Submariner, I've got a Submariner, and the reference is 114060, which is the previous generation Submariner, the first Submariner with the ceramic bezel. So, you call watches, you talk about references, you don't talk about models. So, if you want to go in that authorized dealer, I want to see reference whatever. Do your research online, know what you're interested in, and speak with a little bit of perceived expertise. You're not going to be an expert the first time you're buying, but at least don't walk in there and seem like a snowflake where they're going to try to wheel and deal you. Also, when you're inspecting a timepiece, it's always important to hold it like this. Hold your hand out. Make sure you don't have a ring. I mean, I've got a ring on this finger. Nothing that would scratch the timepiece. Hold it, inspect it. Don't just grab it and be like, don't make yourself look like a fool. Not that it matters. I mean, a lot of timepieces I buy, I'm wearing a swimsuit and flip-flops. It's not how you, obviously you don't want to stink, don't just get out of the ocean and been drinking some beer and peed on yourself or something and go in here and authorize dealer and try to buy a timepiece. Have a sense of decency, throw on a nice t-shirt and make sure you're dry and you don't have sand on your feet. But, this is a very complex hobby. And, this video is just a taste test of everything that you've probably been questioning, and I'm sure you've got a ton of questions. That's why I want you to comment below, because here on timepiecesfortomorrow.com, I'm going to post a ton of videos. I'm going to try to address all of your wristwatch questions. I'm not an expert. Archie Luxury, Archibald Chesterfield III, the Pontiff, he's the most knowledgeable wristwatch person in the world, and I've flashed up a YouTube card for him again. But, it's something, if you get in, I would say if you just get your first watch, if it's going to be a one and done, you don't plan on collecting anymore, definitely get a Rolex Submariner, definitely get an Omega Seamaster 300M. They're rock solid pieces. They're probably never going to fall out of style, and they're probably always going to perform really well. If you're just getting a timepiece and you don't want to spend as much, Oris makes a great piece. Definitely a great piece. Something I see becoming more collectible in the future. Breitling used to be more popular in the past. Breitling still has some really cool references. Again, not like Rolex, where most everything is highly desirable. Not like Omega, where everything's desirable, but Omega tends to release a lot of different references, and it kind of confuses a customer. But Breitling has a lot of perceived less than desirable pieces. But if you stick with something like the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2, you're getting a nice ceramic bezel. And if you get the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2, be sure to get it on the shark mesh bracelet. You can always get a rubber strap or a leather strap in the future if you want to. Again, want to reiterate that when you're buying a sports watch, a watch that you can swim with a screw-down crown, always, and again, I repeat this, always purchase that timepiece on a bracelet, because you can always add a rubber, you can always add a leather in the future, but always purchase it on a bracelet. Aftermarket bracelets don't work. You need to purchase that timepiece on a bracelet. That way, if you ever sell or trade, you've got a proper bracelet on it. Also, if you didn't sell or trade, but you just want to put something else on it, you can get leather or rubber, but to go out aftermarket and try to get a stainless steel bracelet that fits that timepiece, that's the original equipment, manufacturer, Omega, Rolex, Breitling, that's going to be harder to do, and it's going to be a lot more expensive. So, always, for that reason, always buy. The only exception I would say is Panerai. I got my Panerai. I got it on, I just had a black leather strap, and then I had a black rubber strap. The rubber was a swim, and then the leather, of course, was dress. And I've gotten a lot more straps for it since. But, I don't even own a stainless steel bracelet for the Panerai. I just think Panerai looks best. Again, personal preference. I think it's one piece that looks best. excuse me, without a bracelet. You know, I think it looks better on rubber or leather. And something else I want to talk about, you know, you're buying your first timepiece. If you don't want to swim with it, you don't want to shower with it, another great option is, and this is water resistant, but it does not have a screw down crown. If you want something that's high horology, that's not, you know, at the price point of Audemars Piguet or Patek Philippe, which are arguably the two most. So there's something called the Holy Trinity, and that includes Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, and Vacheron Constantin. I probably mispronounced Constantin. I think it's Constantine or something. Who knows? Who cares? So AP, VC, or PP. You know, those are the three. Those are the Holy Trinity. Then there's a brand called Jaeger-LeCoultre. It's pronounced, it looks like when you read it, it's like Jaeger-LeCoultre. But it's Jaeger-LeCoultre or Jaeger-LeCoultre. Jaeger-LeCoultre, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Jaeger-LeCoultre. So they're very nice timepieces, awesome movements, well decorated, exhibition case back. If you want a one and done and you don't really care to swim with it, but it's still somewhat water resistant. I mean, I wash my hands with it. I wouldn't shower with it. You know, this Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Control is great. You know, it's a piece people see. You know, maybe you're a banker, maybe you're a financial advisor. You know, you want to put on a, you know, I'm going to talk about your watch, but people see it. You know, it's like, okay, well that guy, you know, knows his timepieces. You put on something like a Jaeger-LeCoultre, you know, you're going to non-verbally express your knowledge of wristwatches. You know, so that's a tier above your Rolex. That's a tier above your Omega, your Breitling, and a tier above your Panerai as well, in my opinion. But, you know, that's a different type of piece. I use that primarily for, you know, for dress situations, you know, where I got to be around a bunch of snooty people and, you know, I don't want to wear a Rolex and I don't want to wear an Omega. You know, that's a situation where I'd wear that. But I know that, you know, I'm not going to be asked to jump in the swimming pool. Because if I am, that might do it. But since it doesn't have a screw down crown, it's probably not. So I probably wouldn't swim with it. So, you know, that's, you know, if it's a one and done or just your first timepiece, especially if you plan to wear it anywhere, definitely go with a screw down crown. Stick between, you know, I would say 39 to 42 millimeters, unless you have a very small wrist. Then you may want to look at 36. You know, 36 may be sufficient. Or even if you have a larger wrist and you don't want to watch to look big, you know, there's nothing wrong with 36. So, you know, just a few things to take into consideration. Again, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I don't consider myself to be an expert, but I will try to answer any of your questions. So, you know, comment below, subscribe, ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. And it's just a real pleasure. It's a very addictive hobby. Again, it's a hobby I've been involved with for over 30 years. You know, so it's not something that it's like, oh, I kind of got bored. Some people do. But, you know, if you're passionate about it, there's so many things you can do. This is just, you know, recommendations for purchasing your first timepiece. You know, I'm not going into the depth within this video. Subscribe, ring that bell, check out the Timepieces for Tomorrow playlist, and check out all my other videos where I go into a lot of depth. I mean, there's different type of collectors. There's people that collect complications. There's people that collect monochromatic, meaning black and white dials. There's people that collect dress watches only. There's people that collect sports watches only. There's people that collect, the list goes on. So subscribe, stay tuned, ring that bell icon. Appreciate your viewership. Again, comment below, tell me what you think, and stay tuned for more videos soon. I appreciate your viewership. Best of luck with your wristwatch journey. See you later. Hey y'all, Captain Irix Guy here. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe. It's youtube.com/Irix Guy. And ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day.